Okay, I know begging for like 10 minutes for more people of color to read this book is a bit dramatic, and you're probably thinking it means this book is good, and I wanted to share with more people who would enjoy it. Well, no, I'm trying to share this book because when I looked through the Goodreads reviews, majority of them were not from people of color. And they are the people I wanted to hear from. And also, I don't know anyone who's read this book yet, and so I have no one to talk about this with. And I initially wasn't gonna make a video on this book because I didn't have much to say, but the longer time passed, the more I found it to linger in my head. So here we are. I'll summarize the book first in case anyone wants to see if they'd be interested in reading it, and you can pause and come back if you don't want anything I say later to affect your perception going into the book. So, The Many Daughters of Afong Moy by Jamie Ford is a generational story, but not in the way that books like East of Eden or Pachinko is written. It's a generational story in that we follow the matrilineal descent of the Moy woman, starting with Afong Moy, who is believed to be the first Chinese woman to step foot in the United States. It's also a tale about generational trauma and how the memories, experiences, and pain impact descendants that come after them. And this is shown through the present day descendant, who is a woman named Dorothy in the year 2045, who is starting to have vague memories that don't belong to her, but instead to these various women who came before her. So that's the end of my blurb. So if you don't want what I say to impact your perception, you can pause here. Okay, so the first thing I want to mention is that Afong Moy was a real life person. I did not know that when I picked up the book. It wasn't until I was like halfway through and I was like, let me Google her and see if this book was based on true events. And I saw that she is an actual historical figure. While in the book we follow her descendants, in real life records of her disappear after 1850 and it is unclear what happens to her after that. While parts of what is written about Afong Moy in the book is accurate, many of it is fiction, and I just find it kind of uncomfortable, the idea of taking a real life person and writing a fictional story about them, especially when so much of their story, both real and fictional, is filled with so much trauma. I didn't see anyone mention this, so I'm not sure what other people's opinion on this are, but I think especially now, recently seeing how there's so much media exploiting trauma, typically women's trauma, like the recent Marilyn Monroe and Pamela Anderson movies, it just made me really uncomfortable once I saw that Afong Moy wasn't just a fictional character. Next, this is going to be lengthy because I want to explain my thought process and how I got there, so please bear with me while I get to the point. But getting into why I want more people of color to read this book is because when I was reading this, I was getting so annoyed and frustrated because the characters in this book are said to speak Cantonese, and I speak Cantonese, but for the life of me I could not understand so much of what was being said in Pinyin. It was really frustrating and honestly distracting me from the story because I started obsessing, like literally obsessing over the Chinese. Like, my Chinese is not the best, but it's not that bad. And when I googled the author and see that his family has been here since the mid 1800s while I'm first gen, I don't think I can be blamed for assuming that it's his Chinese that is the issue. But I was determined to figure this shit out, so I went through every single review on Goodreads to try and find a Chinese person who might have had a similar experience to me, and I only saw one review from a Chinese person, but her review was not helpful to my situation. And at this point in time was when I started wishing there were more Chinese people who read this book. But I still didn't give it a rest, and with the help of a friend and Googling what the character calls her grandma, I learned that what they're actually speaking in the book is Toisanese, which is similar to Cantonese. This was when I had to start taking back the blame because I was unaware that Toisanese and Cantonese are sometimes used interchangeably. I was also unaware that Toisanese was the dominant dialect spoken across Chinatowns in North America prior to 1965. So that was my bad. But this made me start thinking about this tweet I saw a long time ago. I'm not sure if it's this exact same one, but it was what this user is talking about and leads me to why I wanted more people of color to read this book. And the tweet says, reading Megha Majumdar's acclaimed novel, The Burning, I'm struck by how often local Indian food the characters eat is explained in English. Kachari with cholar dal is explained in the next standalone sentence as fried dough stuffed with green peas and a lentil curry. Shingara is pastry filled with spiced potatoes and peas. Yet I've never read an English novel in which shepherd's pie is described as braised minced meat and covered with a layer of mashed potatoes, or donuts as ring-shaped fried doughy cakes. When we in the subcontinent read words like eiderdown, hot dog, haha, pretzel, Homburg, etc. in English novels, it falls to us to educate ourselves. Yet we non-Western writers must not expect the same effort from Western readers. Now, I can't speak on this book she's talking about because I haven't read it, but also because I'm not Indian. But thinking of what she is talking about in a broader sense, when I first saw this tweet, I felt what she was saying and I agreed with her. But I personally didn't have a strong opinion either way because I've read books that did this and books that didn't do this, and neither one really bothered me. Books that don't explain concepts that were foreign to me don't detract from the story. I can either just ignore it or look it up if I was really curious. But the thing about this book that made me think of that tweet is that I'm Chinese American and I've never felt frustration like I did until reading this book because the author doesn't translate some of the sentence he writes in Chinese. So there were some sentences that I felt were used weird or incorrectly, but at the same time, I wasn't sure if what I didn't understand was because my language is poor. And the thing about pinyin is that it's not really Google translatable, so I couldn't even look it up if I wanted to. And honestly, this was probably more frustrating because I'm Chinese, and so I couldn't just ignore it. But it made me start thinking, if me, a Chinese American person, is getting frustrated by the 10% I don't understand, then how would others feel? And that thought wasn't just for this book, but for any book that doesn't explain cultural things and is also a bit hard to research. But please don't think I'm insinuating that books written by people of color need to always explain themselves and target Western audiences, because I still understand what that Twitter user is saying. I'm just now also starting to see why people like the author she's talking about might do that, even though it's not necessarily about food that I'm referring to. I don't know who Jamie Ford's target audience is, but if I'm just talking about this book and Chinese American people, there are going to be people who are both better and worse at Chinese than me. And assuming that we are the target audience, that's a lot of people within the community who won't understand bits of this book. I don't know. I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to say. I'm not sure if I'm making sense or if I'm saying it the way I'm thinking it, and I'm not really sure what my final point is. I guess I just wanted to see more discussion on this and this book since I didn't have much of an opinion before, but now I do for both sides. I also want more people of color to read this because I just want to hear the thoughts of more people of color, and probably specifically women of color, because this story deals with things that are mostly experienced by women of color. And just going off the face pics I can see on the Goodreads reviews, there are so many from white people who love this book and very few reviews in general from people of color, and so it makes me side-eye this book a little. I kind of have thoughts on the way the themes and I guess trauma was utilized, but they're more vague feelings and vibes than anything, and I'm just wondering if there is anyone else who would feel the same as me but is more intelligent and able to put to words what inklings I have. Like, I don't want to insinuate anything positive or negative, because I haven't given it enough thought to back up those claims. And so this was also one of the things I was searching for when going through all the reviews, but was unable to really find anything. Sorry I don't talk about the actual plot and story itself, but my brain was just so preoccupied by thoughts on everything else that I didn't even have the space to dissect the writing and the plot. But I still want to hear discussions on that as well. I really hope there will be people who see this video and decide to read this book purely for selfish reasons, really, but I just have no one to talk about this with, and I'm so desperate. Like, please, if anyone sees this video, like, I really hope you do decide to read this book, even if you might not enjoy it. I just really want to hear from more people of color and to see what they thought.